evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here to the Flatout Racing Network's continued coverage of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Barebones Racing Series as we get ready here for race number 9. The regular season finale rolls into the road course in Napa Valley. This is Sonoma. We've talked about this down the home stretch of the regular season. Not many series end up putting the playoffs together at a road course, but the twists and turns here this evening are going to determine those that will be battling for this season's championship. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Sean Prime. And Sean, you know, there's a number of drivers so far that we know have made pretty good headway in coming into this race almost worry-free, completely worry-free, depending on where you are points-wise, if you've got a victory. But as we talk about the drivers that are going to be fighting for their playoff lives, it's really close around that cut line. And some drivers are really good at the road course. Some of them might be looking to just survive here and garner whatever points they can, hoping it'll be enough.
Accurate description as usual, and good evening again, Seth. I got myself handcuffed away from my race seat because it's killing me to not be out here on a road course tonight. I got to be honest, but be a great perspective broadcasting it tonight. We were looking at the standings earlier, and I'm like, the top 12 kind of almost pretty comfortable, and then until we noticed that there's a glaring name missing here, at least one, and that's Rodney Sullins, who was the guy in 12th place battling John Godfrey for that final playoff spot. And as of last check I saw, he is not here tonight, so that's going to open up some chances there for Mr. Godfrey, Mr. Bob LaChance, and possibly even Frank Rivard, right?
Absolutely, and I was also looking at some other scenarios too, another couple of drivers that have formerly won this season that would be locked in through their checkered flags. I wondered if there was a mathematical scenario that they could fall out of the top 12, making it possible for other drivers to move their way in, that being Josh Metallic and Nick Gunther. They're both 70-plus points ahead of the cut line. No way that they're going to fall below the 12th in the standings, and so that scenario is out the window. But to your point, there's about 3 or 4 drivers that have an opportunity to move their way in. On the flip side here, we know that Rodney Sullins, who came into this race, the cut line driver, he's not in the field here tonight, so he will fall out of a playoff spot. And even some drivers like Colin Flick, Ron Hagel, and Dave Melson, I believe they are 16, 17, and 18 points respectively above the cut line. They're not safe yet at all either. With the number of drivers they have in the field, I'd say if you finish in the top 15, you're probably going to be able to point your way into a playoff spot. But you can't take this track lightly. You can't come in and think, just as long as I keep it in a position, I'm going to be safe. You got to be keeping aware of all the other moving pieces here as well, especially with the fact that cut line, 12th in the stands, is going to be moving a lot now since the driver that held it coming in tonight is not here.
It sure is, and we'll have drivers in here tonight that, there's a lot of places you can get off the track here at Sonoma, but not too many danger spots at the very end of the track. That hard right-hander, turn 11, the hard braking to finish it. You can get into the tires, and you can demolish your car on moderate damage there just fine. So, but it's not as bad as like we saw on the Chicago street course yesterday, where you're literally walled in. You can go off-roading and four-wheeling all you want here, and try to get in survival mode, but at the end of the day, you got to get through this one.
We have had some tough tracks here down the home stretch of this regular season. A number of tough tracks await those few that will make it into the postseason. Last week, we were at the historic North Carolina Speedway, better known as The Rock. Saw Josh Metallic go to victory lane, and for those that didn't tune in, Sean's got some recap for you of what went down in North Carolina last week.
Sure do. We had lots of activity going on at the Rock. We had caution flags, too many, but we had racing. I mean, we had cautions, but we had great racing going on, and a product of that, unfortunately, sometimes is the yells with the field sizes. As you said, Josh took home the P1 position. Colin Flick took home the Challenger and P2. Great run for Colin, and Ronald Lucier rounded out the podium at Rockingham. Fastest lap of the night, no surprise here. Jeff Supta, followed by Jim Glaude and Ron Hagelin. We had 17 different lead changes amongst 7 different drivers, with Jeff Supta leading the most laps at 66. And then Doug Cady started 23rd, finished 6th for a net gain of 17. He was our highest climber of the race, and our hard luck guy was one of our potential chase drivers or playoff drivers. Dave Melson started 8th, finished 27th. Down to 19, and we had the big one at the end of the race there, if everybody remembers, and a couple drivers there made huge gains at the end. That would be the 41 of Denny Carroll and the 11 of Jeff Supta, who managed to navigate those things. I believe when your game had crashed, we had some replays. They gained some serious positions by very nicely, safely navigating their way through that carnage we saw at the end of the race. And that'll close the book on Rockingham.
So far this season, 8 races in the books. 4 drivers have gone to victory lane. And kind of looking at the scenario coming into tonight, no Gunther, no Metallic. When we talked to Jeremy Jeffries after his 4th win on the season a couple of weeks ago at Atlanta, he said, don't bet on me here. I'm not exactly the best when it comes to road courses. Jeff Supta looked like he could potentially be a favorite here, but he had a moment in qualifying, so he's going to be starting deep in the field. Still a long race, so he could certainly get up there. But what do you think the odds are? Because a couple of drivers' names that you brought up here before we went live, Brian Schilling, Grant Wesley, still a 0 in the win column, and they've had some pretty good speed here in practice, and it's translated over to Q as they'll share the front row.
I've had plenty of road racing with those gentlemen that you mentioned, including Mr. Jeffries, and been doing a bunch of it on iRacing as well with those guys. And, Jeff, he's got himself, he's fun at practice is what I heard. Don't count him out. He'll work everything he can, including strategy, to his advantage, and try to get his way through here. But certainly he's got a uphill road. I had circled Brian Schilling's name. He's great here. I've had incredible races with Brian here. And Brian is our season 59 winner here, and one from the pole here in season 59. So he's be right at the top of the board there. And like I said, you may find other names in here. I see Ronald Lucier near the top of the speed charts there in qualifying. Dave Melson, always a name, and Jim Glaude as well. But a lot of turns, a lot of laps.
And something we also have to bear in mind here as well, the criteria to get into the playoffs is either have a win and finish in the top 20 in points, or finish in the top 12 in the overall standings. And there are some drivers, we've seen it before, when sometimes road course races come down to fuel strategy, strongest car of the day may not always be the one that goes to victory lane. There are some drivers that are hovering around that 20th in standings cut line that if they find victory lane here tonight, that automatically gets them a spot in the playoffs. I see Bobby Farrell, Bob Dixon, you mentioned Jim Glaude, he's starting up here in the top 5, Andre Charest. Any of these drivers pick up a checkered flag, they would jump above the 20th in the standings cut line, and that's an automatic ticket into the postseason. So we've seen a whole bunch of different scenarios when these races come down to the very end, and got to have ourselves prepared for anything to possibly happen here tonight at Sonoma.
That is for sure. And race strategy-wise, the 40-lap race, we do a competition caution here, so there'll be no yellow flags tonight. We will be seeing nothing but action. We'll have one lap at pace speed. I believe that will be lap 21, because at the end of lap 20, we'll see our cars coming onto pit road for the competition caution. We will award the halfway points as they enter pit road at the conclusion of lap 20 tonight. And again, that's 10 points. If you're leading at halfway, that's an extra 10 points. That can put you right into the playoffs on itself.
Absolutely. Again, I mean, we've stressed all season long, and rightly so, the importance of those stage points. And we will see who's going to be able to garner them here. Of course, the winner ends up getting a stage point as well towards the playoffs, and that can be huge in regards to where you're seated when the playoffs are put together here at the conclusion of this race in preparation for the Monster Mile next week at Dover. We'll quickly go through the starting lineup here. As you see, they're not doing the full pace lap. They'll actually make their way down here into turn 11 and go green right after they exit out of that corner. So Brian Schilling captures the pole position, and he's looking for his first win on the season, as is Grant Wesley, your overall points leader on the outside of the front row. Colin Flick, your leader in the Challenger Series, will make up row number 2 with Jim Glaude, Dave Melson, and Ronald Lucet coming off that podium finish last week. They're in row 3. Bob Dixon, Frank Rivard in row 4. Andre Charest and Bob LaChance will be your top 10. Ron Hagelin will be back in row 6 with Bobby Farrell. John Godfrey in row 7 with Jeremy Jeffries. Jeff Supta back in row 8 with Denny Carroll. They were last drivers to take time. Row 9 finds Glenn Harris, Pat McCarskey. Top 20 complete with Brian Rawson and Dave Robbins. And making up the 22 car field here tonight, Billy Elliser and Randy Waugh back in row 11. As you mentioned, Sean, no cautions here except the guaranteed one at halfway, so keep all 4 tires on the racetrack and keep it clean till we get to that point. Here we go. Schilling will get the regular season finale underway tonight at Infineon.
Wasting no time getting under here. As we go up through turn 1, you'll hear us call the turns. This is going to be turn 2 at the very top of the hill. Kind of a tough turn, a little bit of a blind turn.
Oh, and contact immediately right out of the gate. Colin Flick around as they were nearly 3 wide, and Supta going to make a little contact with the 95 as well.
There was a little bit of damage and delay that Jeff Supta wasn't counting on, but they'll both get going and continue on as the leaders are now heading down into the carousel here at turn 5. And they're going to go ahead into the hard braking zone to make that hairpin turn at turn 6.
Near contact there between Hagelin and Dixon. Brian Russin way wide there as they made their way out of turn 5. Those tire barriers around here. This is a racetrack where you can get off course a little bit and be able to save it, but you go too far out, there are a bunch of tire barriers and Armco barriers ready to swallow you up, and they do not deal light damage.
And you really want to flirt with it. And some of these curbs you really want to use, but not too much. If you get too much up on the curb, it can really upset the car. But especially going through the top half of the S's there, through 7, 8, and 8A, you really want to use the curbs there to help the car turn. As you see, Brian is coming around to complete the first lap.
Gonna have about, looks like 5-6 car lengths back to Grant Wesley in second, Jim Glaude in third. He and Colin Flick actually were banging doors up the hill here to turn number 2 before Flick went around. But he holds on right now for a spot on the podium. Ron Lucet right there in the 4th spot, and battle looks like it's going to be for the 5th spot. That's Andre Charest trying to gather the thing up on corner exit, trying to reel in Frank Rivard.
Big gaggle of cars there, and right behind Andre Charest, I believe I see Bob LaChance in the 51. Yep, the black car cresting the hill, and Jeremy Jeffries, Ron Hagelin coming down the hill there. Now Bob LaChance has got himself in striking range to get himself into the playoffs here. He'll need a little help in doing so.
I believe we targeted 3 drivers that are looking to capitalize on the fact that Rodney Sullins is not in the field here tonight. That 12th position in the standings up for grabs. LaChance, Godfrey, and Frank Rivard. 12 points separate those 3 drivers right now, 13th through 15th in points. LaChance, the highest of, Frank is actually the highest of the 3 right now. 2 positions ahead of LaChance. John Godfrey right now in the 12th position. And something else you brought up there, we saw that contact at the top of the hill there at turn 2. No cautions come out in this race until the halfway point, but that does not mean that if you end up getting into somebody and causing an incident that you're not going to meet some ramifications. You do have to serve a pass-through, and that's a lot of track position that you're giving up there, a lot of track time if you make a mistake that costs somebody else.
Yeah, it is huge. It puts you to a deficit and drive through under green, because there will again be no yellow flags here tonight. And if you cut the course, meaning you go 4 tires over the curbs and gain an advantage by doing so, you've got to slow down to 20 miles per hour in a safe area, obviously, and then you can pick your speed back up again. That's basically our rules here governing the road courses. And you see Grant Wesley has now closed the gap and put some pressure into the top of the hill as they get ready to head down into the S's.
Obviously, both these drivers looking for valuable stage points, but I think even more so, they're just looking for a victory. They've had very consistent seasons. Brian is 6th in points. Documented Grant has racked up stage points aplenty here during the course of the first 8 races as your overall points leader, but both of them are just trying to find victory lane before we conclude this regular season, get themselves some momentum, if you will, in terms of a checkered flag heading into the playoffs.
Brian is so smooth here. He hit the curb in turn 10 just perfectly so he could max down, heading down to the hard braking zone into turn 11 there, and he opens up the gap just by doing those little things there. He opens up a bigger gap on Grant, and Grant will get him back too. I mean, like I said, Brian, Grant, Jeremy, sometimes Jeff Supta, Jim Glaude, myself, we've been running all sorts of crazy cars in iRacing on all sorts of crazy left and right turning tracks, and yeah, they've been getting some good experience, and they're quite sporty.
Riding on board here with Brian Schilling. Just look at it on the curbing there. Car hops up in the air as he downshifts into first gear. A number of these corners, you can hear the tires spinning, trying to get that rear grip. Right on the chip there in second gear as he made his way through that straightaway that goes from 5 over to 6. And now the downhill. To me, this is the toughest part of Infineon, is the S's, because number 1, you're going downhill, but number 2, if you mess up the entry to that first corner of the S's, you're in trouble the whole rest of the way. It just throws the timing off.
You have it right. It's something I wanted to point out as well. You can get off in the beginning, but then you've got to make a concerted effort, because you need for 8 and 8A, the last 2 before you head down that carousel area down the hill, are so important, because getting out of that last S, 8A, is critical to that whole rest of the track. So sacrifice a little bit on the entry, use the curbs, and get back into the throttle off of that last curb as early as possible.
Brian Schilling out of the gate with the fastest lap, 1:15.652. That's a tick quicker than the lap he ran in qualifying that put him on the pole position. That is currently the fastest lap of the race so far. Grant Wesley has lost a bit of ground to him. Grant was only about maybe 4 car lengths off his back bumper, but has lost some ground here. And I noticed that before we went on board with Brian, looked like a couple of near slides for Grant Wesley. And one thing that we talked about here as well, I wasn't exactly certain just how important tire wear was going to be, and you talked about the front tires wearing equally, but when you go slipping and sliding around here as well, it's going to really heat up those rear tires, and it's going to make it a lot tougher as the run goes on to find that grip you're looking for when you mash the throttle off the corner.
Everything is taking it to the extreme, but being smooth at the same time. Braking zone, as you watch Brian braking hard here into 11, not to slide the tires, but braking almost hard enough to slide the tires and picking up the throttle, not mashing it down, getting into it gradually, even in the center of the turn, to just speed that as much as you can around, and then getting into it as as fast as you can. All those little things pick up. So I think Jim Glad almost caught the wall coming out of 11 there.
Close there for Jeremy Jeffries as well. I mean, even when we were on board with Brian Schilling, he was a little wide coming off the X11 there, nearly scraping the left side on that retaining wall, separating the track from pit road. As we're watching the battle on for 4th position, Jeremy Jeffries hounding the back bumper of the Spider-Man Chevrolet of Ronald Lucet. And, in the early portion of this race, obviously, track position is important, stage points are important. But is there a time where you kind of look in the rearview mirror, you see that a driver has closed up a gap on you, and kind of like what we just saw right there, you just let him on by? Because the last thing you want to do is force yourself into a mistake trying to hold off somebody that might be a little bit better on the pace than you. Run your own race, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, you said it perfectly, and now it matters even more in this first half of the race. The drivers know there is only going to be one stoppage of racing, one chance to catch their breath, to regroup, to close the field up, and that's going to be at the end of lap 20. So if there's nothing to be gained here, if Grant sees that running his tires off is not going to even get him to Brian in this first half of the race, just hold pat, hold serve, work on refining his line, so when we go green again for the one and only final time at the end of lap 21, he can give it another go.
Believe we've had a moment with Brian Rawson. He's retired out of the race. Let's see if we can find what happened to the 6 car. He had a moment there up on the top of the hill of turn 2, but I don't believe that's what took him out of the race. Also had a moment in the S's. Looks like he might have actually retired from the race after that. We'll show what he had happen here. And this is what we're talking about, the timing through the S's here. Up on that curbing right there, you can see it get the car a little offline, and
that's all it took. It just carried him too far out to the left, and he went digging in the sand Baja mode. And you can do that here. That's not going to hurt him just in the lap time on that time. And it looks like he's going to take it down pit road at the conclusion of this lap. He may have had enough.
Andre Charest coming off of pit lane here in the 75. Looking to see if there's any damage on that car, if he came down for repairs, but I don't know. That seems like an unscheduled stop.
Well, you got to get to lap 8. In my notes, you really want to get to lap 8. 7, I guess, could get you there, but you really want to get to lap 8 to be able to make it to halfway. By my calculation, you can go about 13 laps, 12 safely. And I was doing a demo run, really, maximizing the RPMs. So the worst fuel mileage you could probably get would complete you 12 for sure. And the 13, I was sputtering coming to the line, but I completed the lap. So really want to get to at least lap 8 to make your pit stop if you want to run the whole fuel out.
Well, he has lost a lap in the process. We'll see where he cycles around after everybody makes a pit stop here. I mean, maybe a play to try and do something different as Andre Charest almost falls in. Well, he does fall into the must-win category here to even make his way up into the top 20 in points to be eligible for a last-minute spot in the postseason. As we're watching the battle here for the 10th spot, that's John Godfrey in the 7-Eleven, one of those 3 drivers we were talking about trying to capitalize on the fact that Rodney Sullins is not in the field tonight. Running solidly. The problem is the other 2 drivers that he's battling for that 12th spot are running up ahead of him. Right now, Bob LaChance is in the 6th position. Frank Gerard right behind him in 7th.
And John's one position out of getting a point, but he's going to work here on Bobby Farrell in the Adam Petty throwback ride, and He's got plenty of time here, patience and stuff like that. You're there, you're in the zone, so you're just looking for the driver, which we all do, miss the turn and be able to capitalize on that moment. That's the best way to make passes here. Or obviously getting into the best braking zone, which they're heading down the hill here towards turn 11, is probably the best place on the track, in my opinion, to make a pass. Or getting out of 11 and getting a great run to pass him on the front stretch.
As we knew coming into tonight, 4 drivers were going to be locked into the playoffs through their victories so far this season. Jeremy Jeffries, Nick Gunther, Josh Metallic, and Jeff Supta. There are a couple of other drivers that are locked in on points. They were mathematically ahead of the 12th of the standings cut line by more points than can be gained if you get all the bonus points available here tonight, including the stage victory. Those drivers would include Denny Carroll, who right now is in the 12th position, as well as Grant Wesley and Brian Schilling, who are right now running in first and second place. So for those drivers, as soon as they took the green flag, they knew that they were going to be going championship racing next week.
Good to know, especially with some of the treachery that can happen here. And I'm seeing a lot of black marks on the track, especially in some of these braking zones, and that could force your hand. I mean, there's enough grip on this track that if you get into a couple of really hairy lockups, you may have to pit for tires. You may simply have no choice. So we could have seen that earlier with a couple of those guys that may have pitted earlier. I think the 75 was one of them. He could have gotten into tire trouble.
Tell you who's been on the move, Jeff Supta. Started this race from the 15th position. We saw him get a piece of that incident at the top of the hill at turn 2 on the very first lap that dropped him back, I think, a couple spots further, back to around 20th place. Since then, 9 laps in, he's worked his way into 7th position, and he's starting to close up here on some more spots with LaChance and Ronald Lucet. He's not got the fastest lap time of the day, but he right now might be giving Brian Schilling a run for his money in terms of the consistent lap times as we've gone on.
Jeff is a man on a mission. His mission is to gain as many spots as he can before we tighten this field up. Because when we tighten this field up, he wants to be able to see the front. He wants to be in striking range of the front, and he's on his way to there with still halfway to go in this. So we're 1/4 of the way through the race right now as we start to see some lap cars here. I see Brian Schilling go to the inside of Pat McCarskey up there. But Jeff's put down, even in traffic, put down some solid lap times, and he, just as he said, he's eating up Bob LaChance just as we speak.
Whoa, McCarskey around there off the exit of 10, right in front of a few drivers, including second place Grant Wesley. And this is not the best place to be spun out. He's going to back it up there into that runoff section in between the exit of turn 10.
Careful coming out here. He's coming out of a blind turn and traffic's coming, so he wisely backed up again, maybe get a better angle so you can see the oncoming traffic coming out.
So down near the exit of the drag strip here in the infield, and looks like he will get it going.
Just as Jeff Supta is doing a great job out braking Bob LaChance's 2 great road racers going at it right there. And Jeff gets by clean, so I'm sure he had a little bit of heart failure when he saw a car coming up from behind that wall, because you're really up on it when you hit turn 10 and come out, and you're all you're worried about is running off into the sand on the outside to your left, and all of a sudden you see a car nose peeking out from behind that wall. That had to be a moment for those guys.
A jump scare at Sonoma. I don't think anybody would have that on their bingo card, but nice shot there by Pat McCarskey with the safe merge back onto the racetrack. You saw it just moments ago. Jeremy Jeffries came to pit lane from the 4th position to take his pit stop here in this first half of the race. We'll see if that helps him close up any distance on the driver he was trying to reel in, that being Jim Glaude. Race leader Brian Schilling coming up here at the conclusion of lap 11.
This is right about where I'd probably expect it. Safe, so you don't run it 2 to the end of 12 or 13. No reason to, and you'll safely make it to halfway here. So split the run in half. Looks like Grant's going to go out and stay and lead a lap.
Yep, get himself that bonus point for a lap led there. Somebody else on pit road. That's Denny Carroll completing service. Colin Flick just up ahead of him there on pit road. This pit lane, it is agonizingly slow. 35 miles per hour, and it's a lengthy one that you have to stay at that 35 miles per hour for so long. Drivers, you want to go faster, but you can't, and you got to make sure you do not speed on a pit road like this, because if you do and you have to come back around, oh my goodness, that is a lot of time that you have to make up. I mean, maybe if you're gonna speed on pit road, do it here in the first half where you've got a shot of at least getting back into contention when everybody's bunched back up. You do it in the second half of the race, that's a good finish. Go on.
You are done. There'll be no chance to make it up. Exactly. So that's when you go down that pit road, you have to be telling yourself that the whole time. But you know, you're a racer. You want to get every little bit you can, especially if you can make a road course pass on pit road. That's the best way to do it.
So we'll probably see Grant coming to pit road this time after he got himself the lap-led bonus points. Mentioned Brian Rawson out of the race. He's now been joined by Pat McCarskey, who we saw have that moment off of turn 10. He might have had an accidental downshift as he was trying to get the car refired, because I'm seeing the reason for him retiring out of the race, a gearbox issue. And that's another thing that we don't talk an awful lot about here at road courses is, we talk about how this track is abrasive on the tires, how it's abrasive in terms of the fuel strategy, but the gearboxes, the transmissions, there's so much upshifting and downshifting that goes on here, and we've seen so many times where a driver that's had the dominant car of the day can have a problem with a gear, completely lose a very valuable gear, and then find themselves susceptible to everybody else behind them that have all of their gears available.
I always say in the drivers' meeting when I'm racing, we need to pray to the gear gods. Pray to the gear gods, because it is one brutal thing about this game, and we've all felt it. Because you put a lot of effort in and attention into these road courses, and then you just lose a gear, and it's like, why?
Saw Glenn Harris have a moment up there, top of turn 2, so he got off into the grass. Bob LaChance, I believe, is going to be inheriting the race lead here, so, we talk about him being one of those drivers trying to point his way up into the top 12. A bonus point, single point, could be a huge difference maker into whether he'll be above the cut line or not at the conclusion of this one.
He is making that stretch to make it 13 laps, so it probably took a little bit of attention and saving, provided that he makes it. He may be slowing down a little here, but yep, so he's going the full 13, so now he knows he can do it.
And here he comes to pit road. This just shows what kind of a gap Brian Schilling had, because I believe that Bob LaChance was in 6th place when the pit stops began. Right there was the exchange for the race lead. Schilling got his pit stop done and was reeling Bob LaChance in to take the top spot back.
Bob is not going to get a lap led, I would not believe it.
No, he's not.
Yeah, Brian is credited with that lap. So, gallant effort.
And as Brian was making his way there into that little crook, that left-hand turn 12 towards the start-finish line, Grant Wesley was just entering into turn 11, so Brian is going to have a pretty sizable gap here as we approach the halfway caution.
11 seconds.
There is Grant right there, making his way up through 3 and 4. A couple of lap cars in between himself and Brian Schilling. Dave Melson just up ahead, and Glenn Harris is going to go by Billy Elliser, who has a moment there at the top of the S's, turn 6. A lot of people have debates on what the toughest corner is here at this racetrack. I hear a lot of people talk about that inside curbing over in turn 5. We just saw Billy Elliser have a moment there in turn 6. You got to get the thing really woed down, and it's a very tight corner. Not quite 180 degrees, but maybe like 110, 120 degree left or right-hand turn. And then, of course, down here, that paperclip heavy braking zone right-hand turn 11. Where are you on that argument, or are they all equally difficult?
Oh no, I'm glad you asked. For me, my Achilles heel, turn 10, and it's so important. Down the bottom of that hill, that last little kink, just trying to get it just right. And Brian's been doing it as he goes off 2 wheels there, no big deal. But Brian's been doing that one really well. My favorite, turn 11, that hairpin. I tell you, I have a good record on road courses. That's and to me, it's all about the braking. It really is, and I love turns like turn 11.
It's interesting you bring up turn 10, because I was noticing a number of drivers in practice that would get their the right side tires on that curbing there that kind of almost looks like it should help you, but it actually causes the tires to slide. It shot them straight and had them going off course. And as you mentioned too, you carry so much speed into that corner as well, so it's very difficult if that thing starts getting out of shape to whoa it up before you slide off into the grass. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe there is a tire barrier over in that section on the left side of the racetrack. As closing up is the battle for 4th here, with about 4.5 laps to go here in this first stage. Jim Glaude trying to hold off Supta, who's made his way up into the top 5.
Not going to last long. Jim's doing a great job, but it's not going to last long here. I think Jeff is going to get him in turn 11 if I had to guess.
Jeff's had an adventure at some point. I don't know if it was contact with another driver or contact in the wall. There is some damage on the left side of that machine.
There is indeed, and there he goes. Right, turn 11 as predicted, rolls around Jim, and he'll set sail. So that gets him now up to fourth. He's probably exceeded his expectations. They're right about where he wanted to be at halfway, or where he's comfortable. See if he has a chance to pick up and catch up to Jeremy or not. But it's got about another 6 seconds. So it's possible.
So a couple of drivers on pit road. Dave Robbins in the 96, Billy Elliser in the 26. Our challenger leader in the point standings having a moment. Colin Flick, and it looks like it's taken him out of the race. Let's see if we can find what happened to the 95 car. He was running around the 16th position. He was just ahead of Brian Schilling, in danger of going a lap down. Looks like he got that curbing you were talking about right there in turn 10.
Right in front of the leader.
Yep.
Yep, he got, see now, you could curb your friend, gravel, pea gravel, whatever on the other side of the curb, not your friend. And looked like there was a little contact there possibly.
I think there was into the right rear quarter panel of Brian Schilling. Brian almost ended up getting the tire barriers there as well. Let's take a look at that again from the perspective of the 4 car as we're going to go on board with Brian Schilling. Near miss moment here for the Kodak Chevrolet. This is what's going on outside the windshield.
Right front, possible. Almost got the left front, but it looks like a little contact with the right front.
So Colin Flick, as mentioned, out of the race. Colin was, I believe, well,
ninth in points.
I was gonna say potentially safe in points, but he came into this one above the cut line by 16 points. I'm sorry, 18 points to the good. We're gonna have to see in relation to him and those other drivers.
He'll finish 17th, or excuse me, he'll finish 20th here. He'll be credited with.
So trying to do quick math here, it looks like he was 29 points ahead of John Godfrey, 33 ahead of Bob LaChance, and 42 ahead of Frank Rivard. With 22 drivers in the field, it would be really difficult for anybody to accumulate enough points to knock him out, despite him finishing, as you said, in the 20th position. I know Brian Schilling, look at all the traffic he's having to deal with now. That was Randy Waugh, Bobby Farrell, John Godfrey had to get by, and he's got another car up ahead here in a minute, too.
Yeah, that's the lucky dog race behind him with Randy Waugh, Bobby Farrell, and now our bubble guy with Rodney Solon's not being here tonight. John Godfrey just went a lap down. So 2 of those guys are going to get the lucky dog, and 1 is not.
That's a great point. Andre Charest, who's just up ahead of Brian Schilling, is already a lap down. He would go a 2nd lap down here. And there's Denny Carroll in the 41, so it may end up being a 4-car fight for the 2 free passes if Brian Schilling's able to get around the Crown Royal Chevrolet.
Don't look now. Jeff Supta's cut that gap in half to Jeremy Jeffries. He's still got about a lap and a half to go.
Supta on a mission, and looks like after he took on some fresh tires there, the 11 now has the fastest lap of this race, 75.610, eclipsing the 650 that was laid down here by Brian Schilling.
Well, fastest laps we've had here in past history. Me again. Sorry, Jeff Supta, Brian Schilling. Last 4 races we had here. So you've got those fast guys, and then Grant Wesley was right up there as well.
Pass there on Denny Carroll now has us with 10 drivers on the lead lap, as Brian will be making his way around here to complete lap 19, put lap 20 on the board. When he hits the line for lap 20, caution will come out. That will be our only caution of the evening, the halfway point.
Actually, the conclusion of lap 20.
Okay, so 2 laps from now, or 1.5 laps, I guess we could say.
At the end of lap 20, they're going to head down pit road. That is the competition caution. So they will race to the end of lap 20 and then go down pit road as if they're under green. They'll slow up, a little bit at the end there, but the gaps will stay. And then when they exit pit road, they'll catch up the whole field together, and we'll pace around lap 21 to take the green starting lap 22.
Yeah, and the timing of that's interesting as well, because you and I were talking about this. They have guaranteed 20 laps that they run here in the first half of this race before the stage comes to a close, but only about 17, 18 laps that they run in the second half, which kind of opens up the window a little bit more in terms of fuel strategy.
And in the second half, these guys are going to know how they could have done on fuel. They've measured it out over the first half. They've known how hard they can run their tires and what happens if they make a mistake, because undoubtedly everybody probably has. So it opened, it is kind of a half and half race. You could play it safe and just split that second run in half, but you could really try to stretch it out and then do some kind of crazy strategy, and get less fuel, because it's going to be about one can for sure.
Ron Hagelin is not too far up ahead there, Brian Schilling. I'm not sure if Schilling's going to catch him, but if he does, that would then take John Godfrey out of a lucky dog position. He's got about 5-6 car lengths to make up on Denny Carroll, so he's hoping that triple one stays on the lead lap here before the halfway caution comes out. Oh, look at this. Are we flipping the stage?
Looks like he went down. He's going to take the lucky dog down there, and our leader's on pit road. That'll score him the 10 bonus points. And if you watch as they come down to take this, should see the 88 come in here next. Lap car, the 711. Everybody has to come down this time.
Got some lap cars in between these lead lap cars there. Supta closed up a bunch of ground on Jeremy Jeffries as
So
they approached pit road.
Jim Glad will take fifth.
Looks like Ronald Lucet, valuable points for him there, as he'll be in sixth position, looking to solidify his spot in the playoffs on points. Was eighth in the standings coming into tonight. I believe he was 34 points above the cut line coming into this evening. Bob LaChance, Frank Rivard, talk about those two trying to fight John Godfrey for that final playoff spot. Seventh and eighth for the both of them.
Curious to see the 038 come down there, and had to double check. He's a lap down. He must have had trouble. Dave Melson's usually a pretty serviceable road racer.
Bob Dixon coming in ninth, and Ron Hagelin will get the final spot in the 10th position.
And now you see as they come out of pit road after they've gotten their service, they are at a snail's pace. And what will happen is the lucky dogs will end up either going around or dropping to the back of the field and getting their laps added.
Another driver going to fall victim with an engine gearbox issue. That's going to be Dave Robbins. Looks like he'll be finishing in 19th position here tonight. One of four drivers that have retired out of the race prior to our halfway point. Colin Flick, Pat McCarskey, Brian Rawson being the other three. Looks like with Hagelin getting back there on the lead lap, I'm not sure if Denny Carroll got back on the lead lap with Schilling pitting or not. So it's either going to be...
They're always trying to sort it out here because
Yeah.
always at some point somebody doesn't follow the given instructions, unfortunately.
So it's either going to be Carroll and Godfrey who are the lucky dog drivers, or Godfrey and Melson. But we'll try and figure that out here. It looks like Godfrey's dropping to the back, so he'll get his lap added back. So we know at least that he's going to be one of the free pass drivers. We'll try and figure out who the second driver is going to be. As looks like they're waiting for Jim Glau, Jeff Supta, the rest of those lead lap cars to make their way up here. I mean, before that caution came out, Brian Schilling had nearly 17 seconds back to Grant Wesley. And now Jeff Supta is going to be up here in the 5th position. Didn't have the best of qualifying efforts, had an issue on the first lap of this race. Now if you're Brian Schilling, as soon as this green flag drops, you're probably going to try and get out of Dodge, because we've seen him and Supta pretty equal on lap time. Supta the fastest lap of the race. It's looking like maybe in terms of a consistent speed, it might be the 4 versus the 11 here on the home stretch.
It could be. It looks like Jeff may have had some time on pit road fixing the damage, with Jim Gloud is now out in front of him and at the 038 and 711 were our lucky dogs, I'm being told. Sorry
Okay.
about that delay. But yeah, Jeff's looking at Grant in his mirror. I mean, excuse me, Brian's looking at Grant in his mirror. He knows what Grant gave him and is capable of giving him, that's for sure. Jeremy keeps knocking himself, but he is no slouch. But Jeff is going to be up on it. Jeff is premier level at this stuff, and he's going to be looking to get rid of Jeremy and Grant and set sail after Brian as fast as he possibly can.
So with the confirmation of those lucky dogs, out of the 18 drivers that still are running, 13 of them will be on the lead lap. And we talked about what the do's and don'ts in the first half of this race. Second half of this race, do not make mistakes. You will throw your race away if you do so. It has to be all about execution here to the conclusion. Again, this is the only competition yellow we have. The only time these drivers will be bunched back up. Brian Schilling hoping that it's the last time he sees anybody in his rearview mirror. As he'll bring us to the start-finish line, he will get us back underway. Single file restart as they head up the hill for turn number 2.
They'll all have to pit one more time to make it from here, but the question is, can we get gone? Brian gets a great start as he heads up the top of the hill, digs down into turn 3 here. Grant is giving him good pressure. This turn 4 is also a tricky one. It's so blind, and you got to set up the exit so well to make it down the charge of the hill here to turn 5. And then, of course, there's that curb in the middle of the road you can use or avoid, your choice. But if you head out to that tire wall, you can end your night real fast, and then hard on the brakes here into the hairpin and down the S's.
Pass for 4th. Supta going to get by Jim Gloud. Ooh, Ronald Lucey with a moment there. Got his right sides off the racing surface. Carl got a little squirrely with that lack of grip, but gets it pointed in the right direction. Hangs on still to the 6th position. I believe that was 6th.
Yep, no harm, no foul there. So Bobby Farrell, good job keeping it out of the sand there.
Scoring the 41 is the race leader here, so might have ended up adding a lap accidentally to somebody there.
That's, I believe, what I'm being told. He didn't go down pit road.
So Brian Schilling is the race leader. Our ticker will probably be showing the 41 is the race leader here for a couple of laps. As soon as they get that sorted out, it will then be correct. And to your point, Grant's not letting Brian get away. This is kind of what we saw, though, at the initial start of the race, too. Grant was able to keep in touch with Brian, but then we started getting about 3 to 5 laps into the run. The rear grip started going away for the 88, and that's when Brian was able to open up the gap. We'll see if Grant's able to keep the run a little bit more consistent for a little bit longer here this time.
Well, you highlighted earlier, this race often can be decided by, well, the gear gods, unfortunately, sometimes, but a single mistake. A single blown turn can be the difference. I mean, Grant's within striking range. If Brian gets off course, Grant could get him, and Brian may have a hard time getting back again, depending on how far he gets behind.
Just had an exchange for 3rd. Supta got around Jeremy Jeffries. As you see, the cars ride the curbing here through the S's. And now Supta has 2 drivers left to reel in. The top 2 in Schilling and Wesley. And something I was thinking about here as well, you know, as you mentioned, we got that one more pit stop coming up. Oh, gracious. Jeff's using all the racetrack and then maybe a little bit of the grass there off of turn 10. What is it that's going to determine when you're making that final pit stop? Is it where you're in relation to the driver you're battling? Is it going to be tires? Is it going to be maybe the amount of fuel that you want to take on? Is there a mitigating factor that is going to be what determines the lap that these drivers make that final pit stop?
Well, I think you said it right there in order. You know, is where am I in the race? What do I have to gain by doing something different than the obvious? You know, which would be to pit, you know, cut it in half. If we're at 18 laps, I'm going to pit 9 laps in and make, you know, depending. But if you wound your tires, if you slide so bad in one of these turns, that could play your card and say, well, I know I can make it up to 13 laps on fuel. I'm going to pit early because it's all about, you know, again, there's no cautions. It's your average lap time is what's going to win the race. So if you've wounded your tires so bad that you can't do that, you might want to try to do it. But if you need to throw a Hail Mary, and if you're back there and you want to try to gain positions, you can try to save a little fuel, you know, short shift, run the longer gears here, and you can add a lap to that, and you can try, you know, again, on a road course that's so balanced as this, you know, you could take 2 tires, but I don't think it's going to help you at the end. I mean, you're really going to want 4, whether you're taking a can of fuel or less or more.
I mean, you mentioned it that the front tires seem to wear pretty evenly and might upset the balance of the race car if you end up having some fresh left or right side tires as opposed to 7 to 8 lap old whatever other side tire you didn't actually change. One driver that came into this race must win to advance into the playoffs. Andre Charest has retired from the race. Third driver to be plagued with a gearbox issue here tonight. So Sonoma is not playing nicely with the transmissions, it would appear. Dave Robbins and Pat McCarskey have also fallen prey to that being the reason for their retirement from this race. And checking in here on the battle for the final playoff position, right now it seems a little too close to call, but it looks like maybe Bob LaChance would have the spot as he's in the 7th position. He was only 3 points behind John Godfrey coming into this one, and Godfrey is currently running in 12th.
I tell you while that was going on, we almost had a lead change. Grant Wesley had put pressure on Brian and was close right up to his back bumper at the top of the hill, but just got a little tire spin in the S's, and Brian was able to stretch it back out again. But Grant is not going quietly into this good night by any means.
Still keeping in touch with that Kodak Chevrolet, and just double checking here as well. It would be LaChance in a little bit of a firm control at the moment for that final playoff spot because he also got stage points at the halfway point. John Godfrey did not, so he was able to build a bit of a cushion in that regard also. As Schilling saw right there a little slide out of the back end as he was making his way up the hill in the left-hand turn 3. And you mentioned a perfect 2-word phrase, striking distance. That's something that drivers always consider when it comes to a road course is if the guy in front of you makes a mistake, you want to be within that window that he doesn't have enough time to recover before you're able to go by him and take the spot away. And for Grant right now, even if Brian put a wheel wrong, spent a little bit of time out there in the dirt, which actually does slow the car down, could be an opportunity for Grant to be able to pounce. And just keeping it in that, what about maybe 6 car length range right there, going out to turn 11.
Oh, there goes Grant.
No!
Overbreak. He's okay, but he lost the time.
Ooh,
but the number I've been watching here
that was close.
The number I've been watching here is 3.8. That is Jeff Supta's gap last lap, and he's about to hit the line again while you were talking there. He is ripping off a lap, and we'll see where he comes in. But he had it down to 3.8 seconds the last time. And actually, Brian stretched it out to 4.5 this time. Or either that or Jeff had a stall up for Grant, one or the other. But they're after it.
That's the kind of moment for Grant Wesley where your heart jumps in your throat, and you're just saying, please stop, please stop.
And that could be the one. I mean, Brian was very, I mean, no, not happy for Grant, but happy for himself to see that because that opens up a gap. And again, no cautions from here on in. Brian can take a little bit of a breath and manage his shifts, manage his turns just a little better. And now he's going to mine that gap back to the 88, while at the same point he's watching where we're watching and seeing if the 11 is making progress.
Some breathing space for Brian Schilling, who has led all but 2 laps here today. Grant Wesley has led the other 2, and that was during the cycle of green flag pit stops at the first half of this race. So Schilling has got, obviously, the bonus point for most laps led wrapped up, as well as, again, Jeff off the racetrack there in turn 10. He is flirting with that tire barrier.
He's doing everything he can to maximize, and sometimes you can overdrive a little, and he'll be the first one to tell you. But even with some damage that's obvious he's had there, he's trying to maximize his lap times. And I'll be honest, these guys, I feel this way, and I'm certain these guys do. Matter of fact, I know they do. You know, they want pressure. They don't necessarily want somebody on their back bumper, but nobody wants to run away and have a 10-second lead. I've won some of these races by insane numbers because somebody behind me had a mistake or something like that. You know, we appreciate each other, the challenge that we give each other, and you want somebody within that striking distance because it pushes you, you know. So riding around and getting a big lead is not necessarily fun. Sometimes you're prone to making mistakes. Like sometimes, you know, when you don't speed, I got to do 55 on the highway. You're sometimes a less attentive driver.
Looks like still the best battle on the racetrack in terms of the drivers in close proximity is from the 6th position back to the 8th spot. Ronald Lucet, Bob LaChance, and Frank Rivard. Dave Melson, under that halfway caution, that competition caution, was one of the lucky dog drivers, but he has now taken his Wendy Chevrolet to the garage area. Guess what it is? Engine gearbox for the 038. That is the 4th driver to fall victim to a gearbox issue here in this one. And the thing is as well, We've run 27, about to complete 28 laps here. The situation for the gearboxes is not going to get any better. Every lap we run, every upshift, every downshift is an opportunity where you're going to end up having a gear blow.
That is true. And just to point out, we are now within the window. You can make it no problem from the end here on fuel. So you can pit from this point on and make it so that the rest of the way. Also noted that gap amongst our leaders. They keep flirting with it. One lap Brian is faster, the next lap Jeff's a little faster. This past lap Brian was faster, got it back up to 4.5 seconds over Jeff, 2.4 over Grant.
You mentioned about Supta when he restarted after the halfway competition caution in the 5th position. Might have spent a little extra time on pit road repairing damage. Well, either he didn't fix the damage or he got it back again here after we went back green, because you can definitely see the scrapes on the left side of his Chevrolet once again. And to your point, looking at the gap rate, whoa, hold on, that's not a good spot for a car to be stopped right there off of turn 10. That's Billy Elliser in the 26. Oh, Jeremy Jeffries. Whoa.
Wow.
Not the time you want to go wide in turn 10. Oh, no. Trying to get to pit road, and I guess Jim Glaude's making a pit stop, whether he wants to or not.
Exactly. Well, I guess that decided his strategy for him.
I guess
so. I guess Jim's pitting.
Huh.
That was a chain of events, that's for sure. And looks like the 26 is stopped there. He might be done. Yep, he retired, appears.
We're going to have to see how that plays out for Jim Glaude in terms of making that pit stop, whether he was willingly going to pit road or not. Obviously, as well, that contact there with the right side of his machine. Don't know, it didn't look like visibly there was any damage, but may have to spend a little extra time on pit road getting a little bit of TLC on that right front fender. We'll have to wait and see. He was in the 5th position at the time.
Played out really bad for Jeff Supta, our 3rd place runner. He lost at least 2 seconds there on that exchange.
And that was going to bring me into my question there before we had the Billy Elliser moment there off of turn 10, is with that gap right now, last time by was scored about 6.4 seconds. Okay, he's coming to pit road now. I was going to say, does that in a way draw you to pit road earlier where you're trying to maybe take advantage of some outlaps on fresh tires to close the gap up on Schilling? Obviously, that appears to be the case.
Curious to see if there's any, well, pitting here, probably not any crazy strategy from Jeff. He's probably going to take those 4 tires because, again, he needs the balance of the car. It almost has eliminated the chance of a crazy 2-tire strategy.
We'll see if this forces the hand of Brian Schilling with Supta to come into pit road, as he maybe come down pit lane, put 4 tires on as well, put himself and Supta on equal footing for the final, what would be 9 laps of this race when he crosses the start-finish line next time by. I'm definitely seeing a lot more slipping and sliding out of this Kodak Chevrolet on these last couple of laps. He nearly got off course. His left rear nearly went off into the grass up the hill there at the exit of turn 2, and you saw right there as he was making his way through 5 and 6.
I'll predict he's going to come this time, I'm thinking. He's probably going to come this time.
I'd be surprised if he's not.
Yep, he is, indeed.
The handling was definitely going away on that machine.
Yep, and he's now well past the halfway of this run. Grant's going to come in as well. Jeremy Jeffries is on the last lap. He pitted with Jeff Supta. You should see pretty much all of them get in here now within this next lap or 2.
Hard to say. Will we see him on pit road here this time, or will he stay out? Nope, he's going to pit. Looks like Bob LaChance is going to stay out again, and I think a reason for this is we saw him play the same strategy back first half of this race. Didn't work. He didn't lead the lap that he was looking for the bonus point. I think he's trying to get the bonus point here, second half of this race.
And Bob, he's got a lot to race for here with the playoff position. He or Frank Rivard couldn't be in position for that unorthodox strategy. Bob knows he was the one driver who went 13 laps on that first run, so he knows what he can do to get 13. Could he go the whole fuel run here, trying to stay consistent and do 2 tires and less fuel on pit road, and try to get it short their way and survive? It's interesting. He'd be the only driver pretty much that could stand to benefit from playing a crazy strategy like that at this point.
Now, a chance right now would appear to be the driver that would take advantage of Oh, off track there for Bob with chance. But Bob would, I believe, be the driver that would capitalize on Rodney Sullins not being in the field here tonight, would move up into the top 12. I was looking to see, with Dave Melson out of the race, Dave was 11th in points coming into this one. However, the gap between him and Frank Rivard was 29 points, and Dave is going to finish 16th. So there's not enough points on the table for Frank to be able to jump up above the cut line. He's technically now, with the amount of stage points that LaChance was able to garner in relation to what Frank was able to garner, the buffer between the two of them, Frank is now in a must-win situation.
Yep, and here's Bob on pit road again. If he knows that, he probably wouldn't play anything unorthodox there. Get the 4 tires, survive, and you should move on. That could be his play here. He would have probably had to go out at least one more lap to try to do something different.
He's still not going to leave this lap.
Just by it goes Brian Schilling by just in their start finish line. So yep, he did not lead that lap.
As we said, though, really doesn't need the bonus point here with what we're seeing as far as the scenario. He should be safe above the cut line. The rest of his competition, Frank Rivard, John Godfrey, not really within striking distance. Frank was below LaChance coming into this one, and Godfrey was only 3 points above him, which LaChance made up with finishing in, I believe it was the 7th position at the halfway point, picking up 3 valuable stage points. Godfrey did not get any, so they were technically tied when we started the second half of this race, and it has been the 51 ahead of the 7-11 for a majority of this race.
And that 88 still in your picture there, as you see in the background. That gap has stayed pretty consistent even after the pit stops. Grant's got it at 2.4 seconds again last time by, and Jeff at 6 seconds. You know, one mistake from Brian, and they're there. Grant for sure.
Doesn't really look like anybody gained or lost time on pit road. Intervals look pretty similar to what they were before everyone made the dive onto pit lane.
Yeah, we saw that one collision avoidance cost Jeff Supta 2 seconds, and he's held the gap just fine since then.
Now it's just a matter of do not put a wheel wrong. And if you're Brian Schilling right here, with the lap that we saw, him, Supta, Wesley, I mean, obviously for Grant and Jeff, they're going to be pushing it because they're trying to close up the gap between them and the race leader. But if you're Brian Schilling, are you full go right now, or are you maybe trying to save a little bit here for the latter portion of the run? Because we saw him really struggling with grip before he made the pit stop. Maybe try and avoid that situation here and have a little bit more life in those rear tires as we get down to around 3 to go?
Well, let's see. Last time by, he ran 1/100th of a second slower than his fastest
Okay.
lap of the race. So I'm going to go no. He is still he's set on kill. He is not taking any chances. And again, rhythm matters. It really does. I mean, I would be probably doing the same thing. I only know how to turn my best lap. And if you try to do something different, your timing, your shifting, your braking, it all gets off on a road course, and that's where a mistake happens. So Brian is staying consistent. He's up on the chip. He's throwing 1:15.4s. That is great, insane, beautiful race pace. Yeah.
Another one. Wow. So he only ran, what was that, 1,000th? No, 2,000s quicker. 2,000s so consistency right there as well. 4.67, a 4.76, and now a 4.74 in his last 3 laps.
He is absolutely on. And again, consistency, balance, rhythm. That's good respect there. You see, caught Glenn Harris at a very tough spot at the top of that blind hill, and both drivers aware of it, and no incident, no worries there.
Yeah, and I feel like at road courses, obviously, as we mentioned, there are drivers that come in and they have the mentality, I can win this race. There's other drivers that have the mentality of, I just want to keep the car on the racetrack, bring it home in one piece. I know I'm not a good road course racer. I want to survive. I fall into the latter of those categories, but I can tell you that it is also a very difficult task when you know that you're a driver that is not going to be as fast as the race leaders, and at some point they're probably going to be coming up on you and bypassing you. As you mentioned, difficult portions of the racetrack, and kudos to all these drivers that have been the traffic these leaders have had to make their way through, picking their moments to get out of the way, realizing the faster cars are going on by. It's a tough task to do, and they've done a great job with it here tonight, been able to make sure that they don't put themselves necessarily in the equation of who's going to win and who's not.
And 5 laps left to go from here. They're counting them down, trust me. Praying to the gear gods. Every shift Brian's making now is like, please don't be the one that goes, because it could happen at any time. Oh, he gets some serious dirt there at the top of the hill as he's trying to lap Bobby Farrell.
I've been watching specifically to make sure that all the race leaders have second gear, because from what I remember here from Sonoma, if you lose second gear, that's a problem. You use that maybe the most at this road course.
Absolutely. You really, because the braking is so tough at this course, too. You really want them all, but you can't deal without second.
Bobby Farrell going a second lap down there in the 92. Believe before we end up getting to any drivers that are on the tail end of the lead lap, we've got about another 5 seconds up to John Godfrey, and then another 6 seconds past that for Bob Dixon.
Right now, Jeff Supta and Brian Schilling within 3/1000ths of a second for the fastest lap of the race.
Whew. Grant going to close up here on Bobby Farrell. Last time by, gap was 4.5 seconds from Schilling back to Wesley, another 2.5 seconds back to Jeff Supta, who was a full 7 seconds behind the race leader. Grant going to encounter make that Bobby up there at the top of 2, so I'm getting a little loose as he had to maneuver his way to driver's right. Completes that pass. Supta now going to close up as well on the 92. As looks like Bobby's going to kind of get out of the, try and move a little wide there, heading into the right-hander of turn 5.
Good job there. That is, it is. Anything you do different upsets your balance, upsets everything. So when you encounter a lap car, even when they're giving you room, just having it take a different, turning point, different lift, mark a different point in your steering, can have consequences.
But it has been tough track after tough track. Next week, playoffs begin. We will be at the Monster Mile in Dover, Delaware. Dover Motor Speedway. First race of the playoffs here for the Barebones Racing Series. And Brian Schilling looking to head into the playoffs with momentum. His first checkered flag of the season. He'll cross the stripe here for 3 laps to go. And now, is there a point when you're leading a road course race where it starts to get almost frustrating that you're not coming around and seeing the white flag?
Oh yeah, as I said, Brian is like, 5 to go. Oh, there's still 5 to go. There's still 4 to go. And you just, again, making every shift, lifting a little more. I mean, I'm using the auto clutch, the regular clutch, lifting, burp flipping, doing everything I can to be as nice to the gears when I can be. And I'm sure he's doing all those things. His pace has dropped off. He's back in the 116s now, which is still a great pace. But tires are wearing. We're in the closing laps. There's no need to push it, but you got to keep your rhythm in. But you mentioned Dover next week, and we're heading to the gauntlet. I mean, this is a challenging series, and we're about to hit a group of challenging tracks. Get your practice in. Bring your big boy pants. It's going to be fun.
A couple of drivers during that last round of pit stop lost some spots. We saw Jim Glaude have that contact with Billy Elliser that all but forced him to pit lane. He was 5th. He's dropped back to 7th. And Bob LaChance is now dropped back here to the 9th spot. Just lost that position to Ron Hagelin. Frank Rivard is currently up in the 6th position, but still, the gap, the buffer for Bob LaChance is in play. Right now, he would be in line for the 12th and final points-paying position into the postseason. And I think that really right now for Bob LaChance, that's basically what he's doing. I would assume all the time when I ask drivers, did you know your point situation? Oh yeah, I knew. I was counting cars. I knew what the scenarios were, and obviously his goal right now, just keep it on the racing surface. Don't make any mistakes. Don't have any incidents that could cost you points post-race. Just run it clean here for this final 2 laps.
Looks like he's got a good enough gap back to 10th that he doesn't have to push it too far and just survive there as Brian's coming down to take the white flag next time by.
Might have a little traffic to deal with on this white flag lap. Bob Dixon on the tail end lead lap just up ahead. I believe I saw another lap car up there as well. But Brian currently enjoying a 4.5 second lead back to Grant Wesley as he makes his way out of turn 10, heads for that right-hand turn 11. He'll hit the front straightaway and see that flag he's been looking for probably the last 15 laps. White flag will be in the air, and Brian Schilling will have one more circuit to make here at Infineon.
One more time through all these turns. Last time through one. coming up for the last time through two. And Bob Dixon, as you mentioned before, he's coming up to possibly lapped. He's in position, a nice solid run, consistent to take home the Challenger win in 10th place.
Absolutely. Great job for him. Number of the Challenger drivers falling victims to some mechanical failures here tonight, but Dixon able to soldier on this evening. Looking to finish this race on the tail and lead lap as well. We'll see if Brian Schilling is able to get by him second half of this course, or if the STP Dodge can keep him in the rearview mirror.
All left to do is to make it through these S's down the hill clean, get it through that treacherous turn 10 and 11 one more time, and Brian Schilling's going to go to victory lane and solidify his position in the playoffs and pick up bonus points going in with a win. And at Monday nights, we do award bonus points for the regular season champion, which is going to be Grant Wesley, and each win you've had during the series.
So some valuable bonus points going to be paid out there that will determine the seeding of the respective drivers. So Supta got really wide there, again off of 10, almost lost it there. Don't want to lose that third position. As off the final corner, Brian Schilling leading 38 laps here tonight, and he'll lead the all-important final lap. His first win of the season here in Season 65 of the Barebones Racing Series. Wesley in third, wrapping up it, to your point, the regular season championship, and Jeff Supta will bring it home on the podium in third place. Looks like Bob LaChance is going to probably cross the line in ninth position, so he will clinch the final points paying playoff position here in preparation for the postseason, as more drivers now crossing the line. That was fourth place right there in Jeremy Jeffries. That just shows the gap the top three were able to build.
The battle for fifth coming. They were really close last time by it, 38 seconds behind each between the 35 and the 62. Yet to see them there. There's Jim Glaude. There's Ronald Lucier in the 62. So
and
Jim Glaude, Ronald Lucier, and Frank. Okay. Ron Hagelin then by, and then
Hagelin was
see
starting
Bob
to close
LaChance
up
next.
on that battle too on this final lap.
Build some speed late, and there goes Bob LaChance on his way to the playoffs, it looks like.
Bob Dixon did finish on the tail end of the lead lap, so he will be 10th in the final finishing results. And 5 drivers finished this race off the lead lap, as we'll take a look here at the finishing results in a moment. Get back up there to the 4 of Brian Schilling, who's going to make his way around and get ready to do his first burnouts of the season at our first and only road course here in Season 65 of the Barebones Racing Series, and becomes the 5th different driver to pick up a checkered flag here during the course of the regular season.
He's going to do an epic burnout, I am sure. Looks like we'll actually have our Challenger winner here to interview tonight, Seth.
Nice.
He's got his regular job doing the factoids post-race real quick.
Brian might be going for the longest burnout of the season, not in terms of time, but in terms of length.
Impressive.
Do we have a tape measure long enough to measure this? I'm not sure. Well, he's not worried about rear tire grip any longer.
He's going to try to climb it up the hill.
Cooked. Oh, okay, here we go. I doubt it, but do you think the engine would survive long enough for a full lap burnout here at a track like Infineon?
No, definitely not in first gear.
Well, he got up the hill there. The question is, how much further is he going to go? I mean, obviously, a lot of elation there, maybe some relief as well. We mentioned he's had a consistent season. He was going to point his way into the playoffs regardless. There goes the engine. It's toast.
That's it. We only made it pretty respectable. That was the most impressive burnout we've seen in a while, that's for sure.
Got it all the way there towards the downhill between 2 and 3, and now has to park it there on the runoff. Probably going to have to call a record to bring him to victory lane, but as mentioned, he was going to point his way into the playoffs regardless, but now he'll be going into the postseason as a race winner, as he led a race high 38 of the 40 laps here tonight at Infineon. Here's a look at the official standings for the evening. Grant Wesley, strong run there late, tried to make a charge. He cut it down to less than 3 seconds, but he'll finish in second place. He will still get that regular season championship, though. Jeff Supta will finish on the podium in third. Jeremy Jeffries will bring it home in fourth, and Jim Glaude will bring it back in the fifth position. So he was able to get around Frank Rivard and Ronald Lucet in those final couple of laps to get back to where he was before he had the issue there off of turn 10 and the contact with Billy Elliser. Ronald Lucet will bring it home in sixth, so he's locked himself into the playoffs through points. Frank Rivard going to come up just short, seventh place, great run, but he needed to finish a lot higher than Bob LaChance, who will finish in the ninth position. Ron Hagelin, great run there in eighth. He was able to snipe that eighth spot from LaChance in the final 5 laps. And Bob Dixon will bring it home solidly in the 10th position, taking home the Challenger victory. I believe that's his first of the season. John Godfrey will finish in 11th. He will miss out on the playoffs. Denny Carroll will make his way in on points. He finishes in 12th. Randy Waugh was 13th. Bobby Farrell in 14th. And Glenn Harris was the last driver to finish this race, as Infineon plagued the gearboxes of numerous drivers here. Numerous transmissions going south, including Dave Melson, Andre Charest, Dave Robbins, and Pat McCarsky. They were joined in the garage area by Billy Elliser, Brian Rawson, and Colin Flick. Colin was able to lock himself in on points despite the DNF. We'll have to see if this maybe closes up the gap between him and the rest of his competition for the Challenger Series. Glenn Harris was 51 points back coming into tonight, Farrell 63 back, and Bob Dixon 68 back. They probably closed up some ground here in preparation for the Monster Mile next week. That will take us now into our FRN post-race wind-down, and let's kick things off with actually, he might be busy at the moment. So what we'll do, we'll go third, second, then our Challenger winner, and then our overall race winner. So let's see if we can dial up the driver, the number 11, Jeff Supta.
User was moved to your
channel. Hey, Jeff, it's Sean and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yes, I do.
Well, I'll tell you what. You were driving that car for all it was worth. I don't know what your heart rate was, but a couple of times mine spiked watching you come off of turn 10, seeing the closing rate between you and the edge of that tire wall. But you used all the racetrack, a little bit off the course as well, trying to close up that gap there between yourself and the top two. Was it just a matter of track position? Because you started deep in the field, you kind of got held up there by that lap 1 incident. Were you kind of playing from behind the entire race?
No, because actually when we hit that mandatory caution, I was somewhere in the top 5, I think. So whatever I was doing worked.
Not sure if Sean is there, so I'll ask you this as well.
Sorry, I had Jeff muted there. So.
Oh, no, you're good.
It's okay because of the broadcast. So Jeff, I tell you, I didn't hear your response to Seth, but I have to believe, with the excursion during qualifying, you had a real tough challenge and you had to just dig all darn race, and it certainly was a gallant effort. But take me through how that went for you.
Well, the first run, I don't know, what's that turn where you go down the hill and it's a hard right? There's that tire barrier on the left. You probably know better than I do.
Turn 10. Yep.
Is that 10? Okay. Well, the first run, I hit it, and I did a lot of damage to my car. So when that mandatory caution came up, they took an extra 15 seconds to fix my car. But because we had such a lead over the rest of the field, I still came out in 4th or 5th. So I got lucky on that one. But then as soon as we restarted that, I hit the same wall the same way and gave myself damage, and I couldn't fix it on that final pit stop.
Seth was right. You noticed that the damage was fresh on that same side of the car in the second half of the race.
It hurt me bad, and I was still running a couple 115, so the pace was there. It just felt like it was just missing a little bit. I don't think I had anything for Brian or Grant, but I was happy to just at least be in third.
I think we calculated, I don't know if Bob did the factoids yet down there or not, but your fastest lap of the race was 4/1000ths of a second off of Brian. So you were right. You guys were right there.
And Jeff as well. I mean, you had a victory coming into tonight. You were already locked into the playoffs. Obviously, I know that you would have loved to be heading into the postseason as a multi-time winner, but bringing it home here on the podium, what does this do as far as momentum as well as you get yourself now ready for the playoffs? How important is it to kind of end off the regular season and start the playoffs on a high note with a good finish?
A lot of these races, I've been putting myself in trouble and having to come make my way through the field, which is really actually fun, but it's stressful. I I I don't know what I think we have another road course coming up. I'm looking forward to that, and I think half of the tracks that we go to are really up my alley. So I'm just looking forward to bringing everybody back close together in the points and taking a run at it.
Well, you got Watkins Glen in your series on Wednesday night with the Aero 88s without the bus stop, and then we have Watkins Glen in this series in a couple weeks. So you'll get some Watkins Glen time for sure, and I know that's a great track for you.
Yeah, I love road courses. I don't always do well at them, but I'm usually in contention for top 5, top 3.
Don't sell yourself short. You're solid, sir.
A great run for you here tonight, Jeff. Podium finish here in the regular season finale. You're already locked into the playoffs, so we wish you luck on that as that begins next week at Dover. Before we let you go, floor is yours for thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Thank you, RTG, FRN. Good race, Brian and Grant. It was fun up there. Everybody gave a lot of room tonight, so I wanted to thank the drivers tonight for a good race. And if my daughter's listening, Samantha, I love you.
Jeff Supta, third place here tonight at Infineon, and gets ready to go battling for the championship starting next week at Dover. Congratulations once again on the great run, and best of luck in the start of the playoffs.
Thank you.
Another driver that's going to be
User
going
was moved out of
playoff
your
racing
channel.
wins the regular season championship. Brings home second place here this evening is Grant Wesley. Let's get a hold of him now.
User was moved to
Hey,
your
Grant,
channel.
it's Sean and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Great run for you here tonight. Second place pretty much the entire evening, and even there in the closing stages, we saw you be able to kind of keep pace there with Brian and started making some ground up there in the closing stages. What little more did you need? Because obviously, at the initial start of this race, we saw you kind of keep that 4 to 7 car length gap between the two of you. Same thing when we went back green on the halfway point. Were you able to visibly see maybe some areas where he was getting you, or some areas where you were making some mistakes and trying to remedy those? What was the situation looking out the windshield there?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. So many freaking corners here. But no, I think we were close. We were pretty close to his pace. I think turn 11, it seemed like, especially early in a run, he was able to step it up just one more extra notch and get a little bit more out of turn 11 and maybe even turn 2. I'm not sure what he was doing differently. I think every once in a while I would get lucky and get a good lap, but he could more consistently do it. Um, but hey, we were in the conversation. That's kind of what I was looking for out of this. I generally run sort of okay on road courses, pretty good. But yeah, Brian Schilling and Jeff Supta, and then Sean Prime. I mean, those are the best as far as I'm concerned here. And to beat Jeff and to be on the heels of Brian, I will take that any day.
Well, Grant, you sell yourself, again, I keep telling people they sell themselves short, but you did. You sold yourself short. I know how well not that you were any slouch at road racing, but you have raised your game and you were in the conversation all night. And I know because you were dueling it out on the iRacing road courses for fun. And you just consistency all night. You had that one, turn 11 excursion where you did, I mean, you could have easily planted that thing even with moderate damage into the tire wall and your night be done right there. And you did a great job keeping it off that turn 11 tire wall. But you were there the whole darn night. You just Brian would beat you a lap. And you were 2.9 at the end of the race after another 20 lap run. And Brian was setting, insane laps at one point. He was running 1:15.4s.
yeah, going back that time when I overdrove turn 11, like I told you, I felt like turn 11 is where I was lacking a little bit. And the braking zone there was a razor's edge. If you were too late, you just lock the tires up and do exactly what I did there. And my race was almost over. Um, so yeah, so then I was backing off of that, right? So that's where I was losing my time.
Well, you may not have the checkered flag at the conclusion of this regular season, but you certainly had the consistency, especially as well, racking up those valuable stage points. And you're going to be taking the regular season championship here now into the playoffs. So I know that obviously you would love to have a victory at this point in time, but how important do you think it's going to be continuing to ride this consistency as the playoffs begin next week?
Oh yeah. I think given the halfway points, a guy can definitely win this championship on consistency without winning a race. Obviously, winning the race helps, but yeah, at the end of the season, that championship race, it comes down to points in that final race. So, it's gonna be a two-part deal. You're gonna have halfway points and end points, and we're that's definitely been our strong point this season. We're gonna end the regular season on top, and hopefully keep that rolling through the playoffs.
Grant, a great run for you here tonight. Started second, finished second, got a couple of laps led there in the deal as well, and taking the regular season championship here for season 65 of the Barebones Racing Series. Congratulations on a job well done tonight. A great regular season overall. We wish you luck in the playoffs. And before we let you go, floor is yours for thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Yeah, congratulations to Brian Chillen on the win. I'd like to thank the owners here, David Cannon, Sean Prime, the admins, Sean Prime once again, Jeremy Jeffries, uh, FRN. Thank you guys for taking time out for us. My teammates with XFM, my friends and family for watching, and my girlfriend Brittany.
That's Grant Wesley, second place here this evening in the regular season finale at Infineon, and your season 65 Barebones Racing Series regular season champion. We'll see where this positions him when the points are reformatted for the playoffs beginning next week at Dover. But until then, great run here tonight, and best of luck next week.
All right, thanks.
Good luck.
Thank you.
User was moved out of
See
your
if we
channel.
can get a hold of our challenger winner here, Mr. Bob Dixon.
User was moved to your
Hey,
channel.
Bob, it's Sean and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Hey, first win here for you in the Challenger Series. Solid night here this evening, bringing home in the 10th position, able to keep that car on track and garner a good finish. A lot of the other Challenger competition having some issues with mechanical problems here tonight, but your transmission held tough for the full 40 laps there. Obviously, we talked with some of these other drivers, and they had an adventurous night. What was it like inside the cockpit of the STP Dodge?
I tell you what, it was smooth as glass. I practiced this afternoon, and I did not even run off the track once. During the race, two of my tires hit some grass. It didn't even throw me off, and that was it. I kept her right between the lines, and the car drove well. It did good. I had a good wheel setup, and I was pleased with the place I made because road courses, I love them. But I don't do well on them for some reason. But I just love road courses, and that's about it, I guess.
Well, this one loved you back, Bob. I tell you, you were consistent all night. You said kept it between the lines. It takes a lot of focus, a lot of energy, and I'm sure it was a bit of a workout for you to keep going and consistent because these things can really dig. And you just did a great job, sir. So, Mr. Factoids, wonderful.
Yep. Sean, thank you so much. I will tell you this. Once we did the 20 lap pit stop, once we did that pit stop where we're all pitted, from that point on, every time I went over the start finish line, I went. So I thought the cards would be against me, but I did the right homework, and I thank Sean and you, Seth, and the guys that put on Jeremy and those guys that put on the race. Finally, I got one here on Monday night.
Certainly did. Your first Challenger win of the season. Hey, there's still some more races to work with here as well. Still be able to make a charge there for that Challenger Championship, and a good way to get it started here tonight with a great, solid run at Infineon. Congratulations on the great run here tonight, Bob, and best of luck here down the home stretch the remainder of this season.
Okay, thank you so much. You guys have a good evening.
Bob Dixon picking up the Challenger victory. I
User was moved
lost
out of your
track. I
channel.
believe that is our fourth or fifth different driver that's won in the Challenger Series so far here this season. And we're now going to dial up the officially fifth driver that has won overall this season. First victory here in season 65 as he goes coast to coast tonight. Let's dial up Brian Schilling in Victory Lane.
User was moved to your
Hey, Brian,
channel.
it's Sean and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yep.
All right, well, we want to give you a little extra time there for them to be able to get a wrecker around there, tow your car to Victory Lane and everything after that very lengthy burnout. That was quite impressive. I'm not sure that the engine appreciated it as much, but hey, it held strong for you for 40 laps and held strong for you on that burnout. Dominant performance here tonight, led 38 of the 40 laps, started from the pole position. You had some competition now and then, you had some traffic to work through. Did it feel as easy as it looked for us up here in the commentator booth?
No, I only wish my transmission was as strong as the motor was, because about 3/4 of the way in, I lost third gear. So, yeah. So Grant kept the pressure on the entire race. You know, if he did a great job, it was, you know, if I made any mistake, he was right there to pounce.
We talked about that and your consistency all night, and we talked about the fact that, yeah, I think you probably feel the same way. I spoke for you. Is you want somebody pushing. You don't necessarily want them on your back bumper pushing into you every turn, but you want somebody close because it keeps you going, keeps you motivated, keeps you hitting your marks, you know, and it makes it more fun. Nobody wants to run out there with a 10-second lead, and you felt like you had somebody chasing you the whole night.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's, you kind of get lost out there. You lose, you know, concentration. And you know, it just keeps you focused when somebody's nearby.
Absolutely, and I'm sure you had a second eye on where Jeff was coming after he had trouble in qualifying. He was really digging that first half of the race to get to where he was, and you just run out of real estate and stuff like that. But I tell you, you were stellar, impressive. Your lap times were and your race pace was great. We noticed at the end there, you know, you fall in the 116s, 117s, and then now I know why you lost third gear. But again, you didn't need to run 115s the whole darn race, but you sure tried to. And dominating win, great finish. A couple times it looked like you got a little close to the edge, and you know, I'm sure there were a couple of tight moments there, but you did it well.
Yeah, there was a couple spots where after the competition yellow, I was just struggling trying to get my groove back, and just I was struggling, dipping wheels off the track and whatnot there. But finally, just kind of told myself, just stop looking in your mirror, just concentrate, start running laps, and you know, things will work out.
Bend, don't break.
Absolutely. I mean, you came into this race already pretty much locked in on points. You were sixth in the overall standings, but having this victory now, closing out the regular season, what does this do as far as the confidence level, as far as the momentum now with the playoffs beginning next week at Dover?
Oh, I mean, it's, you know, I run Mondays and Thursdays, and I I've had bad seasons before, but I feel like either my own doing or just circumstances out of my control. I, to me, this has been just a train wreck of a season for me in both series. So just getting a win makes me happy at this point. You know, whatever happens in the chase happens in the chase. I'm just glad to be here at this point and, you know, work my way that far up in points. And, you know, just a good finish puts a smile on my face.
Well, you're the season 59 champion, looking to go to the season 65 champion, and you're going to be doing that from the number 4 spot, it appears.
Yes, indeed. So, Brian, I mean, congratulations first off on the victory here tonight. congratulations on the great momentum you're going to be carrying into the playoffs. As Sean said, going to be seated in the 4th position. Seems appropriate for the number 4 there. And again, dominant performance here tonight as well. Didn't put a wheel wrong. You had the gear issue, overcame that as well. Solid night overall here at Infineon. We'll let you get back to your celebrating. Before we do, we're going to give you the opportunity for some Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
All right. First of all, good job to Grant and Jeff. Jeff made good work getting up, working your way through the field. Same thing with Jeremy. Big thank you to Jeremy for points. All the behind the scenes work he does. I don't feel like he ever gets the credit he deserves for everything he puts in. Sean, David, the owners, all the other admins, Rodney Sullins, thank you for a freaking amazing paint. I love this car. Just always love that Kodak 4. Thank you everybody that's donated, sponsors this. Thank you for the broadcast, and thank you for the drivers that come out. This is, like I said, this is just always an honor to be able to, sit here and do an interview.
Brian Schilling picks up the victory here tonight, becomes the 5th driver to go to victory lane here during the regular season, and he will carry this checkered flag and this momentum into the playoffs next week, starting at the Monster Mile. Congratulations on the solid run here tonight, Brian. Go enjoy this victory, and look forward to seeing you go to work and trying to claim another championship here in the Barebones Racing Series starting next week at Dover.
Thank you.
Brian Schilling with the victory here tonight, becomes the 5th different winner to go to victory lane. We had a different challenger winner here tonight in Bob Dixon. And Sean, we made history here in season 65. This was the first race all season that Brian Schilling put down a lap time. Most of the time he never would put a lap time down and would start at the back. Tonight, with track position being so important, looked like it was pretty prevalent that he put a lap time down this evening.
For sure. We knew when we came in and we saw Brian here that he was coming to play tonight. And we have the unofficial points up, if you want to hear it.
Okay.
Grant Wesley is going to hold the regular season champion. Now, Brian Schilling may get seated 3rd when Jeremy resets the points here, because regular season pays, I think, a couple less points than a win. And Grant was unable, amazingly, to bring home a win during the regular season. Jeremy, with his 4 wins, is going to be probably the top seed overall. And then you've got Jeff, Brian, and Josh, and Nick Gunther all with wins. Nick with 2, so be at the top of the heap. But the one everybody wants to know is who did make it in. Dave Nelson made it in 10th place. Colin Flick made it in 11th place. Bob LaChance, indeed, seals it in 12th place, 3 points ahead of John Godfrey.
Ooh, we knew it was going to be close between those 3 down there around that cut line, and obviously that was definitely the case. 3 points, I mean, think about it. Those 3 points, the stage points. Yeah,
absolutely. John did everything he could. John ran a great race. He did everything he could. Was hanging in all night. I think he brought home 10th or 11th, if I recall, 11th place. And nothing to hang his hat about. He made a great effort.
So we talked about the fact tough tracks here during the regular season. It's going to get tougher as we head into the playoffs. Dover next on tap here with Indianapolis, Iowa, Watkins Glen. We have the regular season or the overall season finale at California. But what a bookend here for an ending for a regular season and start for the playoffs. Infineon here to set the playoff grid, and then Dover going to play its part into kind of maybe separating those that are going to be riding on a high for the playoffs and those that are going to maybe trying to come back and get those points back that they may lose. The Monster Mile, it's called that for a reason. It's got an appetite, and it's an insatiable appetite for crunched up sheet metal. And so a lot of drivers next week that are going to be battling for this championship, do they go in there with a sense of survival?
I think so, especially the start of the playoffs. There are rarely single car incidents at Dover. There will be carnage. There will be feelings. There will be frustrations. It is Dover. There's no question about it. It's a high speed short track. You can have a big one. You get something to break out off one of those turns, you can pile up half the field. It can be just incredibly complicated, but it's a great racing track. We have a great history with this version of the track. So, there's all those X factors. You need to survive first and then work on your finish second, it would appear.
Well, starting at Dover, there will be 12 drivers that will begin the journey. When we get to our first elimination race in Indianapolis, we will bring the field down to 8. Obviously, after Watkins Glen, we'll be at our final 4 for the overall season finale when we head to the West Coast in California. But we cannot wait to see how Dover begins this journey, begins this road for the playoff contenders here, and that will be next Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on FRN. We appreciate everybody joining us here this evening for our coverage of the regular season finale at Infineon. Brian Schilling, your race winner, as he goes coast to coast at the road course. Congratulations to the 12 drivers that have made their way into the playoffs here this season, and best of luck to them starting next week. Thank you all for tuning into our coverage. We'll see you next Monday night. As for Sean Prime, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Monday evening as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.